We're going to see if GanZi is able to show the magic, as he is down 1-0. He's spawning over here in the top right-hand position as the red Terran, bottom left-hand position as the blue Protoss. Yet again, it is MaCC MaNa. Now, that was a very audacious push with those Marines, I have to say. When you go for a CC first, a lot of times you're the one that has to be very defensive. So to be super aggressive at that stage, at that point when warp gates are just about to finish, that almost always gives the Protoss a big advantage. And not having a bunker up, I mean, that's like, wow, I am cutting corners like crazy. Also, it's sad that he let his stim actually die. But what I'm trying to say is GanZi is that type of player. He looks to cut corners, get a lot of little advantages early on, and from there he's actually able to establish a really nice mid-game advantage. And from there, obviously he can just play straight up and take the game. So we'll see if he does that again and where he actually chooses to cut corners.
Both players sitting at a pretty similar win rate. MaNa wins PVT 63% of the time, and GanZi wins 62% of the time, so pretty even win rates for both of them.
However, if we go to the Ben statistics, it's actually a 2-to-1 favorite for GanZi, as Koreans beat foreigners.
That's true, but GanZi has beaten MaNa in the past, back when they met at the EG Masters Cup. GanZi 2-0 him, so he has that track record in his books, and GanZi is he's actually a very mechanical player. You know, he's not necessarily the more inspirational types. As you pointed out to me in the past, GanZi is one of those Terran players that he does everything just really well based off the current metagame. And I mean, he was trying to go CC first and really try to get ahead of Protoss, who's more likely to go really fast Nexus. It's exactly what MaNa is doing. You see his gateway Nexus. He's not even really harvesting gas at this point. And based off his scout, he knows everything what his opponent's doing as well. So, pretty good job by MaNa thus far. Good identification of the build.
I like what MaNa's doing in reaction to last game, by the way. He notices his opponent is a little bit greedy economically, so he's going to say, I'm going to take this chance to go Nexus first. The only thing I have a problem with is that it's on Shakur's Plateau. Not Shadow Temple, but Shakur's Plateau. And the main reason why I say that is because you can 3-bunker wall off and then have your Marines behind there, and your bunker is in range at the Nexus. And that's very powerful against this style, if you don't go for a forge first. So that's just something to note. Obviously, it's not going to be done this game around. Look at that, GanZi actually makes the fastest bunker in the world. And he'll be absolutely safe. But I know you've been experimenting with fast expansions, Frodan, especially with Protoss Nexus first, or variations of a very fast Nexus. What can you tell me about this particular variation?
MaNa went for Gate Cybernetics Core, so it gives out his Warp Gate much faster now. MaNa, the big thing to pay attention to is where he's spending his Chrono Boost. He's spending it on probes, which means he really wants a strong mid-game economy, so he can really power out upgrades and tech. Now, Shakur's is an interesting map to go really fast Nexus on because third bases are really awkward. It's really far away segregated, and drops can really pick you apart. A lot of times you see 2 base pushes from Protoss. But on Shakur's Plateau, it's also difficult to attack into Terran because the ramp is so small, and unless you have something like Colossus to really punish it, you can't really do much, which is why sometimes we see fast Colossi on Shakur's Plateau. That said, MaNa, he went for more of a Warp Gate-centric style. Not sure what he's planning, and again, this is GanZi's pick, so GanZi's the one who has to make the play here. And you can see immediately he's getting his factory out really quick while double barracks. So very interesting that he's going for reactors immediately on those barracks and not rushing for stim or anything like that.
This will be like that 1-1-1 variation, just 2-2-2, or some variation, like a 4-2-1 or something like that. Sounds like talking. Never mind. But MaNa, he won't know this is coming for quite a long time. And this is the problem with going for a 3-gate robo. Even though it's one of the most standard builds in PvT, a lot of people favor 1 gate into robo into 3 gates. And the main reason for that is you can get the observer super fast, and you can react to very, I guess, radical builds like the one we see right here. I think MaNa expects something like just the standard Marine Marauder with medevac type of variation. And this build does fairly well against this, but I think it actually doesn't counter, like right here, double forge. This is a very off-time double forge.
It's off time based off the robo because it's really hard to, if he chooses to go to Colossus, he doesn't really have to, but if he does, it's really hard to afford it based off of the gas count that you get.
Yeah.
And you're going to be really limited. You can see MaNa's on, very limited amount of units. He does have Stalkers in position in case GanZi rushed for Starport tech, but it's not, and he is. He's going for a Robotics Bay.
That is really crazy, especially off of only 3 gas. He needs that 4th gas.
He's really greedy.
So fast right now because with him being only on 3 gas, it actually limits him quite a bit. The Colossus will barely able to eat Urk out. Not only that, he won't have the ability to research Thermal Lance immediately. That's a big problem because you need Thermal Lance to defend against this incoming push. Whoa. Okay, what is going on?
What do you mean that GanZi's floating his factory over?
GanZi's changing it up on me, man.
He went for 2 tanks, got siege mode, and now switching back to bio almost completely, getting his double engineering base, trying to see if he can play catch up. Now MaNa does have his 4th gas, not necessarily saturated yet, and he does have 3 more gateways in production, so a very standard 6 gateway with +1/+1 Colossus timing can really mess up Terrans. This is very similar rendition of Squirtle's PVT for a long time of how he was able to punish Terrans that were playing very greedy. You can see the Observer getting a pretty good count of the barracks, and to him, he sees everything normal, but he's like, wait, well, why do I see siege tanks? And that's going to really confuse MaNa a little bit, but that's also going to be harder for MaNa to attack into. We're talking about Shakuras being hard to move into a Terran base.
Yeah.
With 2 tanks from the high ground, it's going to be even harder.
But even for me, looking at this, I mean, this is the first time I'm actually seeing a variation like this. And I think it's kind of weird to have these siege tanks. Now, what this does, it's opportunity cost. You can see stim +1, combat, or +1/+1, combat shields. All of those aren't even upgraded. They are on the way, but there's quite a bit of time. So for the first maybe 13, 14 minutes, you're basically saying, Protoss, do whatever you want. And if MaNa sees this and actually thinks about it, he should be able to realize that and say, wow, I can get 2-2 probably before my opponent really starts to establish things. And look at that, Twilight Council goes down. Now maybe this is a little bit delayed because the 1-1 has just been sitting here for quite a long time. I think he could have actually said, don't even worry about units. Let's just get my upgrades ASAP, knowing that my opponent really has no capacity at pushing without stim and combat shields.
Tanks are packing it up. Medevacs are out in the field, giving GanZi lots of aggressive options. GanZi moving out while 2-2 just started. Thermal Lance is finishing, giving MaNa a great amount of increase of range. MaNa sees everything coming in the watchtower. The biggest thing is he has to keep track of the medevacs. If he sees any number less than 4, he knows immediately there's got to be somewhere around the map. MaNa, does he have any Stalkers in defensive position? All of his units are balled up right outside of his natural, so if GanZi splits up whatsoever, he'd be in good position. GanZi's not sieged up.
God.
A huge stim from GanZi, and he immediately runs away. The medevac takes a lot of damage, and that was a great opening from MaNa.
Kind of misplayed, though. He could have gotten a really nice surround with those force fields and trapped a ton of units in, forcing the medevacs to push forward, and then he might have gotten some medevac kills. But now he's just going to push forward. If he can take off those tanks, that will give him the agency to actually start sniping the refineries and things like that. We'll see if he's actually able to get that. For now, no. It looks like the siege tanks will be able to stabilize up on that ramp. Oh, I don't think this is a good decision by MaNa.
He's tacking up a ramp, and MaNa's killing off a lot of the units, though. The Colossus doing heavy damage. Now, this is before +2/+2. MaNa forced to defensively force field. Trying to see if he can deflect the Marines from moving any farther out. GanZi pumping out his units in very successive fashion, getting his Viking count out now, making sure that MaNa can't push into this. GanZi does have a 3rd command center prepared, and what's so interesting is that GanZi actually has not scouted this entire game. His first sight of his Protoss opponent was through the factory. So, for all intents and purposes, this was a blind timing from GanZi.
Yeah,
Oh,
most
man.
definitely. Which is really, really
Unusual,
weird.
yeah.
GanZi obviously is normally a lot more active with his units in this early game stage. So it actually confused me that he's changed up his style quite a bit. But MaNa is sitting pretty nicely. I mean, he has map control. Third is being taken, so it basically says, hey, GanZi, come at me. But no, GanZi is actually taking his third, so okay. That's okay. Upgrades are looking very similar. Storm is being researched currently for our good friend over here, MaNa. And he's just getting the works, which we know and love him to do. He loves to get, you know, High Templars and Colossus at the same time. He usually stops at 3 Colossus, then techs over, and just really prioritizes army composition. And that's something that I love about his style, because I think instead of trying to get these super fast upgrades or, you know, this one key unit, he tries to get just the perfect composition for this endgame stage.
You can see that both players are even in workers, but the mules definitely make up for the count for GanZi. He's got a pretty big army advantage, 113 to 84. MaNa doesn't have Storm yet. He's going to try to engage without it. He's got Colossus, though. Viking trying to get in position. He needs to buy another few seconds for Storm. He looks like he might not get it. The Chargelots are going to battle, trying to buy more time. Viking count is very high, and MaNa may not get an opportunity. Chargelots are going to work. They do have 2-2. MaNa trying to see if he can get some storms off. He does, but they were in the storms that actually the GanZi ran through. It doesn't even matter. MaNa's army completely crushed. GanZi moving in and picking an opportunistic moment where GanZi can move in and really punish Protoss before anything could happen. GG gets called. GanZi takes game number 2 on Shakur's Plateau, tying the series and sending it to the ace match.
Absolutely brilliant. That timing obviously hit his opponent at a critical time where Storm wasn't up. Man, if he waited 10 more seconds, that battle would have gone very differently.
Yeah.
I think in favor of MaNa, actually. Probably all the units, the Marines, Marauders, had to back up from there, and then the Vikings would have been left alone. So a lot of different micro tricks you could have done with that. But man, GanZi hits at a perfect time, crushes MaNa, and takes game number 2. Absolutely fantastic.
And, you know, that's pretty much it to that. I don't even know where I was going with it. Thank you so much to Kingston HyperX for providing SSD and memory to NASL Season 3. You guys are the awesomest. Don't go anywhere. We'll go to game number 3 quickly after this break between MaNa versus GanZi, the last game of the day. Stay tuned for more action from Division 3.